The camera pans slowly across a lavish office, the atmosphere tense. A young Mafia boss son, tattooed and impeccably dressed, sits at his desk signing documents. Suddenly, the door creaks open. 3 girls, identical in age but each with her own distinct look, step in nervously. One of them whispers with wide eyes, "Hello, sir. Our mother has a tattoo just like yours." The Mafia boss son freezes mid-pen stroke. His eyes widen, jaw tightens, and a moment of disbelief fills the room. The girls glance at each other, then at their mother, standing behind them, revealing a hidden secret no one expected. Every second stretches as he realizes the truth. The tattoo he thought was unique is shared by the woman he never imagined. The suspense hangs in the air, leaving viewers wondering, what will he do next? The office was silent, except for the faint click of a pen against the polished desk. The young man seated there radiated an authority far beyond his years. Tattooed arm resting on the armrest, sharp black suit immaculate, hair slicked back, he looked every inch the Mafia boss son he was born to be. The faint light from the floor-to-ceiling windows highlighted the intricate patterns etched into his skin, marks of power, family legacy, and untold stories. He had spent years building the persona that commanded fear and respect in equal measure, and today, even amidst paperwork, that presence alone seemed to dominate the room. He was mid-stroke, signing a particularly important contract, when the quiet was broken. The door at the far end creaked, just enough to pull his attention upward. 3 girls stepped in, tentative, their movements cautious but determined. Triplets, identical yet distinct in their own ways, one with a pale lavender dress, another in soft mint, the last in light peach, their eyes wide, a mixture of fear and resolve flickering across their young faces. Behind them, a woman in her late 50s emerged, sharp eyes observing every detail, her gray coat crisp and contrasting with the daughter's lighter shades. The room seemed to contract. The Mafia boss son's eyes flicked to the youngest of the girls, then to the eldest, and he froze. That familiar sense of control, that dominance he usually wielded with unyielding precision, faltered for just a fraction of a second. He had been so confident, so certain of the boundaries he enforced, that he never imagined such a moment could disarm him so completely. The eldest girl stepped forward first, small but resolute, and spoke, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "Hello, sir. Our mother has a tattoo just like yours." Time seemed to slow. The inked patterns on his arm, the meticulous designs of dragons and roses, were supposed to signify uniqueness, an unbroken chain of authority. And yet, in this moment, he saw it mirrored on the woman standing just behind the girls, the mother. The realization crashed over him like icy water. He knew instantly that this was no ordinary coincidence. The girls' expressions mirrored the gravity of the revelation. They glanced at one another as though silently agreeing to the unspoken truth that had just been unveiled in front of him. The youngest clutched her mother's coat, the middle one adjusting her stance to appear braver than she felt, and the eldest held her chin high, despite the fear evident in her wide, earnest eyes. He swallowed hard, a subtle twitch of unease running across his otherwise calm exterior. The pen in his hand paused mid-signature, a near-invisible tremor betraying the internal storm. The girl's mother stepped forward just slightly, her eyes locking with his, and for a heartbeat, silence dominated. No words were necessary. The room held its breath, the shadows stretching across the marble floor as the light flickered from the chandelier overhead. Every instinct told him to assert control, to reclaim the authority that had defined his life. But there was something about this family, the daughters, their mother, the way they had entered the room so unassumingly, that caused a ripple in his calculated composure. It was as if the air itself had thickened with anticipation. The eldest girl spoke again, a little louder this time. We didn't know who you were, sir. We saw your tattoo in the news. Mom always told us to look for someone like that if we were ever in trouble." Her eyes, dark and earnest, searched his face for any sign of threat, any signal that the consequences of this revelation might spiral beyond their control. He exhaled slowly, trying to reclaim the steadiness of his posture. His tattooed hand, resting now on the polished desk, flexed slightly. The designs on his skin seemed to shimmer in the warm ambient light, a symbol of his identity, his family, and now, inextricably, their mother. The mother stepped fully into the room, the air shifting subtly as she moved. Her coat rustled against the marble floor, a soft yet commanding sound. Her gaze, sharp and unwavering, met his, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of something unfamiliar, recognition mixed with respect and a hint of caution. The Mafia boss' son leaned back slightly in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. He studied them, 3 girls, standing bravely despite the tension, and the woman behind them, a living reflection of the tattooed mark that had always been uniquely his. The implications were staggering. His mind raced, calculating, connecting dots he hadn't realized existed. How long had this secret been buried? How had the tattoo survived, unnoticed, in a family so close yet unknown? The youngest girl finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "We didn't mean to intrude. We needed help." Her words carried sincerity, a silent plea for protection and understanding. He nodded slowly, processing every detail. His usual impatience, his need for immediate answers, softened for just a moment. The scene before him was delicate. One misstep could send the wrong signal, and yet there was a story here, a shared legacy, and perhaps even a bridge to something he had never expected to find. The middle girl glanced at the eldest, who offered a small, reassuring smile. The dynamics were subtle but palpable, the daughters deferring to one another, yet each poised to face the consequences of revealing the truth. The mother's expression softened slightly, an almost imperceptible relief crossing her face as she noticed the hesitation in his eyes. He finally spoke, his tone measured but firm. "Sit down." The words were simple, yet they carried weight. The girls exchanged glances, unsure if this was a welcome command or a veiled warning. Slowly, they obeyed, their movements careful, deliberate. The mother remained standing, a silent sentinel, her presence anchoring the moment. As they settled, the Mafia boss' son leaned forward slightly, his tattooed hand resting on the desk once more. He regarded them intently, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him. This was no longer just a routine day of signing contracts and maintaining control. This was a test of his judgment, his ability to navigate an unexpected family connection that challenged his assumptions about power and secrecy. The room seemed to hold its breath again. The girls' eyes flicked between each other and him, and the mother's steady gaze never wavered. The subtle tension, the unspoken questions, hung in the air, creating a moment that felt suspended in time. And in that pause, the Mafia boss' son realized something fundamental. This encounter would change everything. The tattoos, the family, the daughter's courage, the mother's hidden legacy, it all converged in this single, electric moment. Every decision he made from here on would be influenced by what had just been revealed, and the story was only beginning. The Mafia boss' son remained seated, his gaze fixed on the 3 girls and their mother. He flexed his tattooed hand on the desk, the familiar swirl of ink, a constant reminder of the family legacy he had always assumed was solely his. Yet now, seeing it mirrored on the mother's shoulder and hearing the girl's trembling words, he realized his carefully controlled world had just tilted. The eldest daughter leaned slightly forward, curiosity and courage mingling in her wide, earnest eyes. "Sir, we didn't know who you were at first. We just knew. We had to tell you," she said. Her voice wavered, but her posture remained steadfast. Behind her, the other 2 girls mirrored her concern, glancing at their mother for reassurance. The mother, standing tall and composed, adjusted her coat slightly, hiding the tattoo's lower edge but letting the upper design peek, a subtle but undeniable confirmation. He took a deep breath, letting the tension in the room settle for a fraction of a second. The faint hum of the city outside the windows reached them, but inside the office, the atmosphere was thick, charged with unspoken history and revelation. The Mafia boss' son's mind raced. This was not a coincidence, nor a random occurrence. These tattoos were more than ink. They were a symbol of lineage, of connection, of power. "You're saying," he began, his voice low and measured, "that this isn't just some chance resemblance?" His sharp eyes scanned each of their faces, searching for deceit. The girls shook their heads almost in unison, their expressions a mix of fear and hope. "No, sir. Mom said we had to find you if we ever discovered the truth," the middle girl added, her tone soft but insistent. A flicker of recognition crossed his face. He leaned back in his chair, his posture stiff yet thoughtful. "And how exactly did you come to know about the tattoo?" he asked, fingers tapping lightly on the polished wood of the desk. The youngest girl glanced at her mother, who gave a subtle nod. "We've been learning about our family history, and she told us about someone like you," she said, her voice almost a whisper. The Mafia boss' son exhaled, a slow, deliberate release. The weight of legacy pressed upon him more heavily than any physical burden ever could. This mother, standing slightly behind the girls, was more than a link. She was proof. Proof that his understanding of family, of loyalty, of inheritance, had gaps he had never anticipated. For a moment, silence enveloped the office. The girls shifted slightly, unsure if the moment would pass peacefully or explode into confrontation. The mother's gaze never left his, her eyes steady, unwavering. There was trust there, yes, but also a subtle warning. Tread carefully, or the delicate balance could shatter. Then he spoke again, his tone sharper now, but not unkind. "Sit closer," he said. The girls exchanged quick glances, a mixture of relief and apprehension, before moving their chairs nearer. The mother remained standing, her stance protective yet patient. He needed to understand more. The tattoos, their significance, and how exactly they tied this family to him. "You have no idea," the eldest daughter began cautiously, "how much Mom warned us about finding you, or what could happen if we did." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The Mafia boss' son's sharp gaze narrowed. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk, hands folded, eyes locking with hers. "Explain," he demanded simply. The mother stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "These tattoos," she began, gesturing subtly toward the upper shoulder of the eldest daughter and herself, "are more than ink. They mark those connected to the family's influence, those who carry the bloodline's responsibility. Your father, or whoever taught you the legacy, wanted to ensure it would survive, hidden, until the right moment." The Mafia boss' son's eyes widened imperceptibly. This revelation shifted everything he thought he knew about power, family, and trust. He had been the heir, yes, but now he saw that he was not the only one carrying this legacy. His control was no longer absolute. There were threads he hadn't accounted for, woven delicately into the lives of these three young girls and their mother. "What are you trying to say?" he asked, voice taut, but curiosity and tension mingled beneath his composed exterior. "That we could be part of this?" the eldest daughter whispered. The mother nodded subtly. "Exactly," she said, "but there are rules. The family expects discretion, respect, and careful action. You need to understand them fully before moving forward." The Mafia boss' son leaned back, his eyes roaming across the room, taking in each figure with renewed scrutiny. The girls, with their varied colored dresses and nervous yet determined expressions, the mother with her calm but authoritative stance, all of it seemed to converge into a moment that was part revelation, part warning, part new beginning. He flexed his tattooed arm slowly, the ink glinting under the ambient office lights. The realization hit him. This wasn't merely about control or power. This was about legacy, history, and choices. Choices he would have to make carefully, now that others were part of the equation. The girls looked at him expectantly, their fear tempered with hope. They had found him, revealed the truth, and yet the outcome remained uncertain. Every heartbeat in the office seemed louder, every breath heavier, as the Mafia boss' son processed the enormity of the moment. Finally he spoke, a slow, deliberate choice of words. "You've shown courage coming here, and truth that matters more than you realize. But understand this, once you step into this world, there is no turning back. The legacy you've stumbled upon is powerful and dangerous." The girls nodded, absorbing the weight of his words, while the mother's gaze softened ever so slightly. The room, though still tense, had shifted subtly. The Mafia boss' son was no longer just the man they approached. He was a guide, a gatekeeper, and a reminder of the immense responsibility they now shared. And as the rain began lightly pattering against the office windows outside, the girls, their mother, and the Mafia boss' son sat together, each aware that the events of this day had set in motion a chain that none of them could stop. The story had only just begun, and the shadows of legacy loomed over them all, waiting for the next move. The office remained thick with anticipation. The Mafia boss' son leaned back slightly, flexing his tattooed arm again, the ink catching the soft light from the chandeliers above. The three girls, their pastel dresses shifting gently with every movement, sat close together. Their mother's eyes never left him, steady and unwavering, a silent anchor in the storm of tension that had taken over the room. He studied them carefully, the youngest looking as though she might burst into tears, while the eldest held her chin high, determination etched into every line of her face. It was clear that they had come prepared, that the words spoken moments ago were not random. They had been deliberate, chosen with precision to convey truth and courage simultaneously. "I need to understand everything," he said finally, his voice calm but commanding. "Why now? Why reveal this to me? Why risk everything just to show the tattoo?" His eyes flicked from the eldest to the middle and youngest girls, searching for answers hidden behind their youthful faces. The mother stepped forward slightly, her gray coat brushing against the marble floor. "Because the time has come," she said softly. "They are old enough to know. You are the link to the family they never knew existed, and you are the only one who can guide them through it." He felt a knot tighten in his chest. Guidance was not a concept he welcomed lightly. Control, yes. Authority, yes. But guiding 3 young girls and their mother through a legacy as perilous as his own? That was an entirely different challenge. He had always been the one in command, the one feared, the one obeyed. Now, with the truth laid bare before him, the balance had shifted slightly, and he could feel it. The eldest daughter spoke, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Sir, we don't want trouble. We only want to understand what this tattoo means, and how we can protect ourselves. Mom said it's important to find you first. You have answers, and we trust you to keep us safe." A flicker of something almost human crossed his face, something softer than authority, more instinctual than control. He had not anticipated trust, certainly not from these children who, until moments ago, were strangers. And yet, here they were, extending it cautiously, without pretense, relying on him in a way that unsettled and intrigued him at once. He leaned forward, elbows resting on the desk, fingers steepled. "Protection is not just about physical danger," he said slowly. "It's about knowing the rules, understanding the network, and realizing the stakes. You are no longer just girls discovering a secret. You are participants now, whether you like it or not." The girls exchanged glances. A silent communication passed among them, a mixture of fear, realization, and resolve. The youngest tightened her grip on her mother's coat, the middle one straightened her back, and the eldest nodded subtly, as if acknowledging the responsibility now placed upon them. "Sit," he commanded finally. His tone brooked no argument. They moved closer, the subtle shuffle of chairs breaking the thick silence. The mother remained standing, her gaze fixed on him, unwavering. "The tattoos are more than decoration," he continued, his voice dropping slightly. "They are symbols of power, lineage, and connection. Every mark tells a story, every pattern a warning. The one you share with me links you to a network most people will never see, never understand." He paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. "And it is not without risk. One mistake, one misstep, and consequences will follow." The girls' faces paled slightly, but their eyes held a spark of determination. The eldest raised her hand, a tentative gesture. We are willing to learn," she said softly. "We will follow your guidance, as long as you keep us safe." He studied her, noting the courage intertwined with fear. "Learning is easy," he said finally. "Surviving, that is the challenge." His eyes moved to the mother, who offered a subtle nod, a silent acknowledgement of the dangers ahead. A quiet settled over the room, filled with unspoken questions and latent tension. The Mafia boss' son felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him, heavier than any business negotiation or threat he had ever faced. Yet, beneath it, a strange sense of purpose stirred, a recognition that these girls, and their mother, were not just part of a revelation. They were part of a future he had not anticipated. "Tomorrow," he said finally, voice low but commanding, "you begin your lessons. You will understand the tattoos, the connections, the risks, and you will learn what it means to be linked to this legacy." The eldest girl swallowed hard, but nodded. "We are ready, sir," she said, her voice firmer than before. The other two mirrored her courage, their fear mingling with determination, their trust placed entirely in the man before them. He leaned back once more, eyes scanning the room. The office, filled with subtle light and shadows, seemed almost suspended in time. The girls, their mother, and he himself were caught in a moment of revelation that would forever alter their understanding of family, power, and responsibility. The youngest whispered to her sister, almost inaudibly, "Do you think he will hurt us?" The eldest shook her head gently, glancing at the Mafia boss' son. "No, not if we listen, not if we respect what he's showing us." He observed them silently, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. They were naive, yes, but there was potential, a spark he could not ignore. And in that spark, he saw not just the reflection of the past, but the possibility of a future shaped by careful guidance and careful lessons. The rain outside tapped softly against the windows, a gentle reminder of the world beyond the office. Yet inside, in this moment, only the legacy, the tattoos, and the weight of revelation mattered. The Mafia boss' son flexed his tattooed arm once more, a silent affirmation of identity and authority. The girls leaned closer, ready to absorb every word, every lesson, every secret that would define their intertwined destinies. And as the city outside continued its indifferent pace, the three girls, their mother, and the Mafia boss' son sat together, aware that the journey had only just begun, a journey that would test their courage, their loyalty, and their understanding of what it truly meant to be connected to a legacy that demanded both respect and fear. The office was silent once more, the heavy tension of the past hours settling like dust in the corners. The Mafia boss' son's tattooed arm rested on the polished desk, ink glinting under the warm light, a reminder of both authority and heritage. He studied the three girls and their mother carefully. Each movement, each glance, seemed to carry meaning beyond the obvious. He had learned quickly that appearances could be deceiving, that even the smallest action might carry hidden intent. The eldest daughter leaned forward, courage barely masking her anxiety. "Sir," she said softly, "we want to help. We don't want to get in the way. We just want to understand and protect." He flexed his fingers over the edge of the desk, thoughtful. His eyes flicked to the mother, who gave a subtle nod, an acknowledgement that the girl's intentions were sincere. In that instant, he realized the balance had shifted. It was no longer just about his legacy, his control. Now, the responsibility extended outward, encompassing these young lives that had stumbled into his world by fate and revelation. "Protection comes with a price," he said slowly, voice measured but firm, "and understanding comes only through vigilance. You will learn the rules, and you will learn them well. One misstep could unravel everything." The girls nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. Their mother stepped forward slightly, placing a reassuring hand on the eldest's shoulder. There was trust in her gesture, but also caution, a silent reminder that this world demanded respect and careful navigation. The Mafia boss' son leaned back, a small smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. He recognized potential in them, a spark that could grow into something formidable if guided properly. "You have courage," he said, "and courage is necessary, but courage alone is not enough. Discipline, patience, and awareness will define your survival and your success." The youngest girl glanced at the others, wide-eyed but determined. She whispered softly, "We understand, sir. We'll do whatever it takes." The middle girl nodded in agreement, her fingers intertwining nervously but resolutely. For a moment, the room was suspended in quiet understanding. The Mafia boss' son's stern exterior softened just enough to reveal a sliver of approval. He was no longer just a figure of intimidation. He had become a mentor, a gatekeeper, a guide for the family they had only just discovered. As the evening light dimmed, casting long shadows across the office, he spoke again. "Tomorrow, your lessons begin, and remember, loyalty, discretion, and respect are not suggestions, they are requirements. Fail to honor them, and you will understand consequences far beyond what you have seen today." The girls swallowed hard, the gravity of the moment pressing on their shoulders. Their mother's calm gaze reinforced their resolve. Together, they had faced revelation, shock, and the unknown. And yet, they remained poised. The Mafia boss' son rose from his chair, adjusting his suit and rolling his tattooed sleeves slightly. "We will begin at dawn," he said, "and from this day forward, you will understand what it truly means to be part of this legacy." A faint smile flickered across the eldest daughter's face, a mixture of relief, anticipation, and determination. The youngest and middle girls mirrored it, while their mother exhaled softly, a silent acknowledgement that the path ahead was dangerous, but necessary. And as the city outside the office windows settled into the quiet of the night, the four of them, the Mafia boss' son, the three girls, and their mother, stood together, ready to face a future defined by legacy, power, and secrets that would bind them in ways none of them had expected. The story had reached a conclusion for now, but the journey of discovery, courage, and trust had only just begun.